everybody. Welcome to Tony's Time here, DocSports.com, NFL Talk Part 2 with my good buddy, Doug Upstone down in Phoenix, Arizona. And Doug, yesterday we broke down the AFC kind of top 3 and bottom 3 here. Keep these videos under, 25 minutes or so. Everybody doesn't like them any longer than that. So we can't get to all 16 teams in the NFC or the AFC, but the highlighting the ones that we liked. And of course, when it comes to the NFC, there's a lot of talk down in Arlington, Texas about the Dallas Cowboys and the job that they did here. I thought they stole CD Lamb as the 17th pick overall in this draft, and much needed. Still trying to recover from no Dez Bryant or Amani Cooper, good wide receiver. This Lamb kid it's all about yards after the catch, and surely just speaking about their top draft pick and not all the others they had, but pretty good acquisition for them as they're trying to keep Dak Prescott in-house with a new contract. And this definitely is a nice little carrot, Doug, at the end, dangling at the end of the line here, because this kid is a huge playmaker.
Tony, I agree with, you started talking about this from the previous video we did about the AFC, about how well Dallas did, and I am 100% in agreement with you. I give this team an A for what they did. They went into the draft with specific needs: defensive line, secondary, center, and wide receiver. Now you can debate, or anybody can debate, the order of which they took these players, but they addressed every single need. And for all the crap that Jerry Jones gets, and I'm not saying it hasn't been deserved over the years, but this time his organization nailed it. I give this team an A for everything that they did across the board. Lamb, I agree with you 100%. Just, really a strong pick. And the thing that I like about Lamb, and I'll just be brief, he doesn't check the boxes on for a plus and everything that he does. All he does is catch the ball and make a lot of yards. You think that'll work in the NFL, Tony? I do.
Yeah, I think actually he is a massive upgrade from Randall Cobb for them.
No question.
I really do. And I also like him getting Trayvon Diggs. They got Gallimore, Reggie Robinson, a cornerback. They addressed a need on the line, with Gallimore at defensive tackle, and getting Tyler Biadasz, I believe is how you pronounce that, from Wisconsin at center or guard. Anytime you got a lineman out of Wisconsin, kind of like getting a lineman out of Nebraska back in the 90s. In the 2020 era, you're getting a good lineman if you're getting from Wisconsin. And they also picked up quarterback Ben DiNucci as kind of a luxury pick in the draft as well. I think that this probably is the best draft they've had in the last 5 years, and I think they did very well in this draft. Cowboys, the team that you love to hate, or if you're a Cowboys fan, no matter what Jerry Jones does, this, that, and the other, he seems to be forgiven. We'll see what Mike McCarthy can do with a lot of offensive weapons down there, Doug, because Mike McCarthy is an extremely offensive-minded coach. I think this is a Cowboys team that's going to be able to put up on the average of around 28 points a game this season. They've got a lot of speed and depth with the best running backs in the league. I would say a top 8 or 9 quarterback. I'm not that high on Prescott, as a lot of people are, being a top 5 quarterback, but he's definitely inside the top 10. Doug, who do you got coming in second place here in the NFC here with the grade?
Well, I know we brought up horse racing. This to me would be a dual entry between Dallas and the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota had 15 draft picks, Tony. They had just a boatload of them. And their first 3 I really liked: Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver out of LSU, running back Jeff Gladney, and Ezra Cleveland. I think all of those are very good picks. The thing that I liked about what they did, having so many picks, is that their roster, they're trying to stay in contention as a viable Super Bowl candidate, but yet they're getting a little bit older, and so with all these picks, they actually did extremely well, literally across the board. And what I like about it, it isn't so much just this year, but what they're doing is setting themselves up for the future, because all these guys are at least average to above average players. And so as they then go forward in some of these positions that they just drafted in, these guys can hold the fort down till they get better replacements in the next 2 to 3 years. So the Vikings very quickly, not at the quarterback position necessarily, but they can replenish themselves rather quickly, I'd say.
Yeah, Rick Spielman, Mike Zimmer did a hell of a job in the draft. There are a lot of pundits out there, analysts that rated them number one overall in the draft. And I tend to agree. Justin Jefferson is going to be a stud at wide receiver. He's replacing Stephon Diggs. Unlike when we're talking about CeeDee Lamb down in Dallas being an upgrade for Randall Cobb, I don't think it's hard to upgrade from Stephon Diggs, but he definitely will fill those shoes nicely. Gladney at cornerback, another good one. Addressed an offensive line, a tackle issue with Cleveland. They got everybody that they wanted here because they had to replace Xavier Rhodes. And they picked up a couple of really good cornerbacks in the draft for that as well. And Minnesota is extremely well coached. Say what you want to say about the quarterback position, but I thought that Cousins did a hell of a job in at the end of the season in big games and even in the postseason, Doug, making big plays and finishing, which is something that he had a big check mark beside him and not being a finisher or closer. You still don't want to have any playoff games on Monday night because he's not a good Monday night guy. But nonetheless, I think they did an outstanding job at Minnesota, and they're going to be a team to be reckoned with in that division next year. That's for sure. They're the odds-on favorite to win that division, in my opinion, with a little bit of, at least media-created hype about the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers and them taking Jordan Love in the draft. Doug, who's the second, third place finisher in your top three in the NFC?
I'm going to go with Arizona. And I actually think this team hit 3 home runs in this draft. Simmons kind of fell to them. I thought he was going to go to the Giants. So he fell to them as a linebacker. He's going to be outstanding. Basically, DeAndre Hopkins ends up being essentially a draft pick, through the trade. And then they picked up Jones at tackle, and they got him. And for whatever reason, he fell all the way to the 3rd round for them when he was a 2nd-round talent. So across the board, I thought they did extremely well. And we talked a little bit off topic. I don't know if you saw. I did not know where the coach lives in Paradise Valley. I don't know if you saw his home on Twitter or Facebook. Holy crap! What a place! That's a palace, man.
Well, I wish I had that when I was 20. It'd be a whole different world for me, pal. The one thing that I liked about them and the one thing that was one of their big demise was their defensive line last year. I thought they had a lot of problems in their defensive line, rushing the passer, stopping the run, and picking up Fotu and Lawrence there, a couple of players that may impact right away. They were actually able to get in back-to-back picks 2 quality defensive tackles, which I thought was a big plus for them. And picking up Evan Weaver at linebacker too, not a bad pick as well. And of course, they picked up a running back, Eno Benjamin, as well. I think Arizona is a team. We'll see what the sophomore year looks like for Kyler Murphy this year. I thought he played average last year at best, but what he had surrounding him, everybody keeps talking about Larry Fitzgerald. Well, now you have him coming back with DeAndre Hopkins. You've got some upgrades through free agency on the offensive line, and then a hell of a draft. Doug, who do you thought was the most disappointing in the NFC in terms of drafting this year?
Well, this is probably the easiest pick I could think of in the last, I don't even know how many years. Let's go with the Green Bay Packers. You mentioned Jordan Love. What in the world were the Packers thinking? So, I mean, here's my basic premise on this. Since 1960, there's been 2 teams that are going to have back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Okay, Montana and Young in San Francisco, Favre and Rodgers, the Packers. Rodgers is 36, he'll be 37 during the season. That window is closing. Everybody knows it, Tony. So why in the world are you worried about the future? The future will take care of itself, okay? You can do something about it. To in my opinion, waste a first-round pick and not take any receiver in the first round in a class loaded with receivers is an abomination. And one of the best things, I don't know if you saw this, it was a lot of different places. Did you know that Rodgers in his career has thrown one touchdown pass to a first-round draft choice? One. And that was Mercedes Lewis last year because, God, they picked up in free agency. It is just beyond my comprehension. I'm sounding like Dick Vitale right now, I know. But I don't begin to understand how a team that was borderline Super Bowl, contender does nothing to improve themselves. And defensively, I think they're going to be worse because the so-called Smith brothers from last year, where they're going to get figured out a little bit going into this year. So that 18th or 19th, I think it was 18th ranked defense, I think it's going to be in the low 20s this year. Very, very shocked that the Packers did that. I think they really wasted an opportunity.
I think that it's going to be an interesting year in Green Bay. The chemistry between Aaron Rodgers and the head coach is not good. Towards the end of McCartney's tenure there, it was not good. I don't know whether that's on Aaron Rodgers and his demeanor. He seems kind of like a standoffish guy with a lot to say. I can't quite put my thumb on that, but having that being said, Aaron Rodgers is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL, and not surrounding him with talent to highlight that, I think is a real detriment to that team, especially when you've got surging teams like the Minnesota Vikings right now that talent-wise across the board look a lot better than the Green Bay Packers. And that may come back to bite them in the ass a little bit, in my opinion, Doug.
Yeah, and to your point, the odds makers are exactly agreeing with what we're talking about here. The Packers are now rated only 7th in the NFC to win it and 12th to win the Super Bowl. So if this is your window, okay, you're closing your own window to get to the Super Bowl. And I don't care how you want to look at it. Young in Montana, they won 5 Super Bowls. Favre and Rodgers have won 2. Okay, so it's been a wasted opportunity, I mean, maybe something different will happen. As we know, Tony, anything's possible in the NFL, but by all appearances right now, it's not a good thing. And to put your point on Rodgers, because his deal that he's passive aggressive in his behavior, okay, and how he talks, that's why it's hard to put a finger on, because you don't really know what he's saying, but he says one thing and about one thing in a positive way, but then he negates it in saying it another way. So he's a strange dude, and kind of his family issues kind of point to that as well.
Yeah, just a different cat, but extremely talented. That's a very tough division. Minnesota plays good defense, better than Green Bay. Chicago plays good defense, better than Green Bay. The Detroit Lions going to be a better defensive unit than they were last year, and can be sneaky good with Stafford at quarterback. So this is a very tough division. If Chicago can get any semblance of offense at all, any consistency at the quarterback position, they've got players around the ball that can put points up. Defensively, they're going to hold people down. So you may very well see this year Green Bay and Detroit fighting it out for third place in that division. If Rodgers and his lack of offensive weapons at a high talent level does not come to fruition. Just put it that way, folks. Bad bet to be taking Green Bay to win this division. Bad bet to be taking Green Bay to win the NFC. Bad bet, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but in my opinion. I tell you what, there's a lot of opinions out there and a lot of content that you need to get caught up on as sports are starting to ramp up. UFC, Major League Baseball in talks right now about putting together a season. NASCAR kicking off. DocSports.com is where you need to be to get all this information. Remember, everything over at Doc Sports right now is free except for a little bit of pony racing that Doug, Raphael, and a couple other guys, I think Scott Spreitser's putting some stuff up as well. Be sure and get over there to the website. We'll give you a free $60. Get yourself ready, locked, and loaded because sports are kicking off here in May as we all continue to struggle with the COVID-19 virus. And hope everybody's safe and sound, this, that, and the other. A little bit of an extension out here in Las Vegas announced by the governor till the 15th of May. So things continue to be a little bit dicey out here in the Southwest, and as well as everywhere else. So that being said, though, get over to Docs and stay informed, stay on top of stuff. Doug, quickly here, what were your thoughts on the Philadelphia Eagles?
Philadelphia was my second worst team behind the Packers. Now the gap is pretty large, but still second worst team. As I mentioned about the wide receivers, it was loaded. Taking Jalen Reagor, that's just way too early to take him. I'm not saying he's not a good receiver. I just think that was just too high. Jalen Hurts, on the surface, it makes no sense at all to take him. Now, there's no question that Carson Wentz is injury prone. He's shown that. Maybe that's not a bad idea to have another guy, but he's a guy that is similar in terms of style. Now, that's a fit, okay, but I'm not sure if it all works out. And they also took Davian Taylor in the 3rd round, who was a 5th round pick. So I'm not high on what Philadelphia did whatsoever either. Better than the Packers for sure, but not good.
I had Reagor as a nice little pickup for somebody for a utility receiver in the 3rd or 4th round. In my opinion, everybody who knows me, I've been doing this 28 years. I'm a huge Big 12 guy. There's always Big 12 action on my card all the time. Growing up in Lincoln, Nebraska, just back when we were in the Big 12 before he switched to Big 10, and working on the Husker Radio Network, I've always been a Big 12 guy, and that's where a lot of my picks come from. Nice player, but going that high in the draft, not much. On the other hand, a lot of people are raising their eyebrows about this Jalen Hurts pickup. All he did was win at Alabama, and all he did was win at Oklahoma. And I had him graded higher than Herbert, who went to the Chargers. He's a good deep ball thrower. He can move on the run. He's tougher than shit. I mean, he's going to be a player, I think, based on Carson Wentz's injury history, is going to see the field this year. And I think he's a better than average pickup at quarterback for a backup for sure. And definitely a guy that's going to see some playing time. That's for sure. But I thought they wasted their draft. Anything else jump off the page at you in the NFC, Doug?
Yeah, the other thing that I have is, and we mentioned the team already, was the Chicago Bears. Now, they didn't have a draft picks in the 1st, 3rd, and 4th round because they had made those for the trade for Khalil Mack. So they deserve some credit for that, okay, because they got Mack. But Cole Kmet, yes, the best tight end in the draft. But they signed Jimmy Graham also. And what do they have, like 15 tight ends on their current roster? I mean, it's sort of a joke. Now, in trying to be, you mentioned the glass being half full. Well, let's go this way. Mitchell Trubisky is, well, in my opinion, he's borderline NFL quarterback. And so, but if the plan of Coach Matt Nagy is to bring it down, short passes, take some shots down the field, but essentially have it being a short passing offense with a better running game, having 2 tight ends, okay, I'll give you that. If that's what your plan is, I understand your intention. Will that work? That's to be determined. Anything the Bears did, it just wasn't impressive at all. So even though I can see defensively, to your point as to where they get better, I really don't see where they're going to get better offensively unless Trubisky does something we're not expecting to happen.
2 things on the Chicago Bears. First of all, Nagy is an Andy Reid disciple. He wants to run an Andy Reid offense. He does not have the quarterback to do that. He does not have the speed at wide receiver to do it. And although he's got a crap ton of tight ends, they don't have the athleticism of Kelsey, Gronkowski type player there. One question for you. Sometime in September when the NFL kicks off, as I pray that happens, who's going to start, Nick Foles or Trubisky? You're talking about Trubisky. I think Foles is going to give him everything he wants in fall camp.
Well, I agree with you. I don't think. Yeah, I think Foles. If I'm the coach, unless one guy outplays the other, so let's just go with they're even. Trubisky has, or I should say, Foles has more value as being a backup, as he has proven in his career, than as a starter. So it would make more sense to have Trubisky be your starter. And if he fails, well, then you're done with him. You have Foles, and then you got to go get a quarterback for the future. I mean, that's just ultimately the way it becomes. So, yeah, but could Foles outplay him? Yeah, he could. So, but if I'm the coach, all things being equal, I start Trubisky game one, whenever that is.
Well, I think Foles is in there for a scapegoat because last year you could not replace Trubisky with a career backup at Chase Daniels, being politically correct, especially with the money he was making. They picked up a large contract on Nick Foles, who's commanding a lot of money as a backup, and it makes more sense politically within the system, in my opinion, money-wise, that, okay, well, Trubisky, sooner or later you may have to admit that he's a bust, but you're putting in a guy making $4 or $5 million that has won a Super Bowl, that's won a Super Bowl MVP. It just looks a little bit better from the optics standpoint, in my opinion. I could be wrong. Very quickly, Doug, in the NFC, we're going to bring it up real quick. If we don't, we'd be stupid. Tom Brady is now in the NFC at Tampa Bay. Gronkowski is going to be his tight end. Your thoughts on Tampa Bay? Not necessarily the draft, but do you think that everybody in the world should be high on Tampa Bay to win the NFC, even win their division right now?
I don't. And I get everything that's going on. Okay. Bottom line, though, Brady still is the age that he's at. He's going to be learning a new offense. Okay. Gronkowski has been injury prone even before taking a year off. Yes, he might be healthy to start the season, but there's a very good chance that he will get injured again. So you take away that weapon. Now, offensively, this is the big key, at least offensively. Arians, is he going to go more of a short passing game? Because his whole history is about the deep ball, pushing the ball down the field. Brady can certainly still do that, so that's fine. But when you throw the ball deeper down the field, you increase your opportunities, as we saw last year, of having interceptions. Now, Brady is, nowhere near, what they had last year in terms of that, let's just say, lack of skill. But I'm not. I mean, could I see them being 9-7, maybe even 10-6, and maybe making the playoffs? Sure, if everything goes their way and their defense ends up being better, and and Brady plays to the level they expect. But I can also see 8-8 too. I think you mentioned the draft. I think Wirfs was a great pickup on offense at tackle. But I'm not putting any of my money on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win the division or to win the NFC. Let's put it that way.
Well, on a final note, before we close out the show, I have to agree with you 100%, and I will tell you this. Bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that Tom Brady played in the AFC, a division that sucked the entire time he was in it. The entire time. Dolphins, Bills, Jets. Those are bottom feeders. Those are doormats in the NFL. Now you're playing in a division with the Saints, the Panthers, a very capable Atlanta Falcons team. You're not going to walk through your division undefeated. You're not going to go on the road and still be a 9-point favorite. He's not in that position anymore. Is Tom Brady a system player based on Bill Belichick, McDaniels, before that, Charlie, whatever his name was, I forgot.
Charlie Weiss.
Charlie Weiss, Bill O'Brien, it's going to – now you got Byron Leftwich. So the level of who he is playing, who is coaching, has dropped. He is in his 40s. Gronkowski, he was retired, ladies and gentlemen. He took a year off. He's injury prone. Great tight end, no doubt about it. But don't put the cart in front of the horse when it comes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because Tom Brady is there. It's going to be an interesting experiment. And I don't doubt Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians is a hell of a head football coach in the NFL. Have no illusions. And they do have some talent down there. But remember last year also, defensively, Winfield was a great pickup for him at safety in the draft coming after the offensive lineman. I thought they drafted very well, actually, in this draft. I gave them a B+, A-, I think, somewhere in that range. But, at the end of the day here, folks, there's going to be a lot of chemistry issues out of the gate as well. So it's going to be very interesting when it comes to Tampa Bay. He's Doug Upstone. He's gearing up for another great day in horse racing. If you want some horse picks, get over to Doc's. Don't forget, we're giving you a free $60 bill to get hooked up. We got sports right around the corner. I'm going to have a UFC card out next week. Be sure and tune in next week as I bring on Matt Holt. He's one of the most foremost experts in UFC, and also was setting odds for 8 years as a chief operating officer of CG Technology right out here in Las Vegas, and currently president of U.S. Integrity out here in Las Vegas. We'll have that up for you Tuesday. Tune in. Until next week, Doug, stay safe, stay happy. Nice and warm out here in this part of the country, so get some sun. They're opening up some golf courses, so getting a little bit of breathing room out here. I appreciate you coming on. Best of luck with the ponies.
You betcha. Yeah, excited tomorrow. For those who are seeing this on Friday or Saturday morning, Arkansas Derby got 2 major races in there, so it's going to be a huge day. 14 races. I'll have a full card guaranteed that you're going to love it.
Yep, and don't forget, if you're watching this, you can get it for free. Right there, DocSports.com, free $60. Come on. Let's get it done. Let's get excited. Let's get fired up. I'll be back at you next Tuesday. Matt Holt talking UFC 249, coming to you from Florida on May 9th. We'll give you some picks and some insights into what's going on. Thanks for tuning in. For Tony George and Doc Sports, we sure appreciate your time here today.